Unit 2 Review, Question 37. Evaluate the following exponents. So first let's review what an exponent means with positive numbers. So 8 squared means 2 factors of 8, or multiply 8 by itself with 2 factors of 8. So 8 times 8. Now let's look at these problems. For A, I want to write this out in words. This is the opposite of 4 to the second power. So notice this sign right here, which you might want to say negative, but we're going to say the opposite because the 4 is not negative. The 4 is being squared first in the order of operations because we do exponents first, and the opposite is like multiplication. We do that after exponents. So we want the opposite of 4 squared. So we're taking 2 factors of 4. We don't have 2 opposites. Now 4 times 4 is 16, and our result is negative 16. Now here we have negative 5 squared. So notice the difference in the language. Since the negative is in the parentheses, that means that we're squaring the negative 5. The negative 5 is the factor that we're multiplying by itself twice, whereas here it was an opposite that we did after the fact. So this means negative 5 times negative 5, 2 factors of negative 5. A negative times a negative is positive, and 5 times 5 is 25. Now here we have the opposite of negative 3 squared. The opposite of negative 3 squared. Meaning, we're squaring the negative 3 first because it's an exponent. This is a negative because it's in the parentheses with the squared. And this is an opposite because it's outside and not part of the squared. So we have the opposite. Well, negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3. A negative times a negative is positive, so this is positive 9. And then the opposite of 9 is negative 9. And here we have 8 factors of negative 1. Okay, so the negative is in the parentheses, so that's the factor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we know when we multiply 1 by itself, it's 1. And the absolute value of all these negative 1s is 1. So what we need to determine is our result positive or negative 1. So let's multiply these two at a time. So negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. This is positive 1. This is positive 1. This is positive 1. And we can multiply all of these results. So notice every pair of negatives, the negatives cancel out to a positive. And since there was 8, an even number of negatives, we had an even number of pairs making all of these positive, and our result is positive 1. Let's look at the next slide. 38, compute the following using the order of operations. So here we have sign numbers. The order of operations apply to all of our different types of numbers, the same as we use with whole numbers. So we're going to follow the same procedure. We just want to practice with negative numbers. So first, notice all of these operations are addition and subtraction. So they fall into this category. We're going to perform them as they appear from left to right. So first, 8 plus negative 5. Well, 8 plus negative 5 is positive 3. 3 minus 6, and then I'm copying the rest down. Okay, so I'm going to focus more on the operations we're performing than why 8 plus negative 5 is 3. You should review that from the last video. So now we have 3 minus 6. Well, that's like 3 plus negative 6, which is negative 3, minus negative 2 plus 9. Okay. Now here we have negative 3 minus negative 2. Remember, we could think of this as negative 3 plus positive 2. And this is negative 1. And finally, negative 1 plus 9 is 8. So we performed all of those from left to right. Let's look at the next one. Notice all of these operations are, here's division and multiplication. So as we learned here, we perform them as they appear from left to right. So let's start on the left. Negative 36 divided by negative 9, divided by positive 9 is negative 4. I'm going to copy the rest of the problem exactly as it appears. Now this multiplication, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, positive 16. 16 times negative 1, well, that's negative 16. And finally, negative 16 times 2, a negative times a positive is negative, and we have negative 32. Let's look at the next one. So here we have division, subtraction, and there's multiplication between these two numbers. So remember, first we do any multiplication or division left to right, and then we'll do any addition or subtraction. So first, we'll do this division because it's first on the left. So now we have 6 minus 2 times negative 3. Okay. Now this is subtraction, this is multiplication, so we need to do this first. Okay. So we're going to keep the 6 minus, and then 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Now we can do the subtraction, it's our last operation. 6 minus negative 6 is the same as 6 plus positive 6, which is 12. Let's look at the next one. So here we have parentheses, and we do parentheses first. So I'm going to start with this 8 minus 3. So 8 minus 3 is 5 squared minus 4. Next, we would do any exponents, and we do have an exponent. 5 squared is 25 minus 4. Now our only operation left is subtraction, so we do that last. 25 minus 4 is 21. First, there are no parentheses. There's parentheses for juxtaposition showing multiplication and exponents, but there's no operations in parentheses. So first we start with our exponent. Negative 4 squared means negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. Now we have addition, multiplication, subtraction. Multiplication comes next. So we have 16 plus negative 20 minus 6. Now we have addition and subtraction, so we perform them left to right. So first we do the addition. 16 plus negative 20 is negative 4 minus 6. And now we do our last operation as subtraction. This is the same as negative 4 plus negative 6, which is negative 10. And finally, for this problem, this is when we have the division again, where our last step is this division. So we're going to do everything on top, everything on bottom, and then we're going to divide. Okay. So let's do these to the right. There's only one operation on the top and bottom. 9 minus negative 6, well, that's the same as 9 plus positive 6, which is 15. Okay. And on the bottom, we have negative 1 plus negative 2, which is negative 3. Okay. So notice it seemed I wrote that in one step instead of rewriting this, but you do everything in the numerator, everything in the denominator, and since the division comes last, I could perform those in that way and now do the final division. Well, 15 divided by negative 3, 15 divided by 3 is 5, and a positive divided by a negative is negative.